Hello, welcome back to SVerchok Noding. In this episode, I want to give you a breakdown on how I created this 3D typography of string of text running around like curves. Okay, so the curve is actually invisible at the moment. So you might look at it and think, okay, right, it's just like text on path, right? And if you wanna create text on path using geometry nodes in Blender, you will search, Google search, and you will come into this tutorial that's Ilir Beqiri created 1 day ago. How to animate text sliding along a curve in geometry nodes. Okay, you need to follow this tutorial first. It's actually really good tutorial for under 7 minutes. So that's really good. And in my version, this is kind of the extension of that. Control Option Space, so you get out of that mode, full screen mode. I'll give you the breakdown of how I created this. So each string supposedly have a different poetry, which is this one over here. So this poetry is generated using AI. Maybe in few years or no, in a short time period, we can actually ask AI to generate the whole thing. So, but I'll give you the breakdown on how I created this. So it's basically just like Ilir Beqiri created here. I'm using the same geometry nodes setup. I will not repeat that part, but here I have multiple curves that's generated on the fly using SVerchok. SVerchok, I use SVerchok time to time again because it's actually kind of simpler sometimes. Okay, because you basically here you want to have a bunch of curve, right? The curve is actually, yeah, you know, like like this, and you just want the text that's being generated by AI here, you know, like copy paste the text one by one into the geometry node setup here. This one is by Ilir Beqiri. What's different here is that the string of text, if I cut this, the string of text, instead of A, B, C, D, you know, like this text, string of text, I pass in this node, and this node contain all this text. The way I do that, okay, so first of all, with the geometry node setup, I have imagine I have one curve and one string of text being passed through here using script, or in this case using SVerchok nodes. I'll show you the SVerchok nodes. So I'm gonna go backward. So we have, yeah, let me explain first. We first need to create a bunch of curves, right? Bunch of curves, which is this one. It's called alpha. This one is coming out from SVerchok. It's not geometry nodes, but this is the first step. So I created, how many string do we need? The way SVerchok works is kind of all at once at the same time. So let me explain where we basically created these nodes over here. Polyline viewer will create curve. Okay, you need to make sure the bevel set to 0, so it's become like a plain curve without anything else. And for this curve, we want random points being generated using random vector, and then I just randomize this further using amplitude. And for the seed, I randomize the seed using this over here. I need 40 different seeds to create 40 different curve, and this is, and we get the curve. Okay, so for each curve, I assign the geometry nodes for each curve. So it's using the same geometry nodes, but each one with different string over here. So the string is coming because there are 40 different curves, and there's this 40 different sentence. Oh, by the way, this poem was created using Bard AI. The way I created it, I told Bart to complete the sentence. This is the sentence from anime Ghost in the Shell, I think. I thought what I do was I pretend I was one of those dev mutes. I think this was supposedly created by computer or could be like a hacker. I forgot the anime from Ghost in the Shell, but I tell Bart to learn this sentence and then just creatively created a follow-up of the sentence. And yeah, it creates something, and then it give me 10 verses to continue. So 10 times 4 verses, so it's creating this poetry. I think it's quite nice actually. Just read through this yourself if you want to, or ask Bart yourself, and you're gonna end up with 40 lines of poem. It's kind of interesting, but anyhow, I might give you the link at some point. Yeah, we get these 40 lines of strings, right? I just copy paste into Blender text. So we need to grab this text into Blender using nodes, using SVerchok. So this is how I do it. Text coming in, and from this text, using the string tools, split every lines. So every lines become separate strings, and we need to use this list delete levels. Anyhow, use this node, and we can separate the lines further, and so we can just pass it into these geometry nodes. So it's really that simple. The curve being generated over here is sourced into get object data, and from this curve we just pass it into object ID set mk2 node, and we want to modify modifier geometry nodes input number 2, which is basically right here. We just right click and then copy full data path. Right click and copy data path in this case, because we already have the objects. We don't need the full data path. Full data path will just point into that particular node attributes. Copy data path will give you this modifier geometry nodes input number 2. Right click, copy that, and then paste it here into object ID set. Pass in the objects, and then the value coming from this string of text. Okay, so we end up with this. Right, so it's actually really that simple. Nothing much I need to say, but I think in the future, really, we can just ask AI if you want to have this setup, or if I save the blend, upload it online, you can just follow the whole things. You can just recreate the whole things using the blend files, right? But if you want to learn from scratch, like you want to figure out how to set it up, you look at this YouTube tutorial. Yeah. If I what's cool about this, of course, this one create like random lines. All at the same time, right? The line itself can be cyclic if I want to. In this case, the line doesn't need to be cyclic, because the setup from Ilir Beqiri, the setup actually makes sure the text actually doing the loop, even though they are not, even though the curve is not cyclic. So that's one point to keep in mind. And it's actually looping when it goes through 20. Every 10 seconds, it's gonna loop back to frame 0 to the beginning of the curve. The curve itself, if I use circle here, this is in SVerchok, right? Create a circle. If I just plug this there, we're gonna end up with the string of text on the curve. The way SVerchok works, everything is like can happen in parallel. So everything is vectorized. So you don't need to use loop, you can just say create a number range for the radius. Okay, let's plug this into the radius. So this is just SVerchok being SVerchok. I think the geometry nodes perhaps can also do this using a loop node or repeat node. Can't remember, but anyhow, this we want 40 of these text, and each of the text needs to be each of the curve needs to be different based on the text. I have a feeling my setup is maybe slightly wrong, because the text repeat. This one is actually repeating itself. Yeah, maybe my setup was slightly wrong with this one over here, or maybe I just need to reload the text. Let's save this as, if I just reopen it. Okay, let's just reset the text, load it, plug in the text here, split lines, maybe select all this text and then Command L, copy modifier. Oh, now it's all using the same one. Maybe get selection, 40 objects. Reload. Okay. Now every line is different. I don't know why sometimes, but I think it could be the way Blender and geometry nodes work. I think geometry nodes will read the whole setup that SVerchok does at the first. When you open Blender, it will assign this string into geometry nodes. Now anyway, every curve is different, and we just use a circular curve, right? I believe we also can go back to the curve here, and then we can shift the curve. Yeah, this is like shifting the points of the curve. If you want to randomize the curve slightly, we don't need to do this in SVerchok. We can use geometry nodes to do this. Maybe random number generator, plug this there, size of 40, randomize the seed. Oh, nothing. Yeah, it's gonna get complicated if we are shifting the curve over here, so don't worry about that. So we lost everything again, right? Because SVerchok created the curve. We just need to assign string text on curve, and then select all the curve, and then the last one is this guy over here. Select this one and then select A, and then Command L, copy modifier. So now every curve is the same again. But if you select each one of them, you can see the string is already different. Save, reload. Now everything is different again. Yeah, that's actually important. Now this one will work. So every curve have different text string. So I think it's kind of really quite poetic in that way. So every string, every path of life maybe have different text, right? Different length as well. If you want to have different length, you can specify a different number of vertices that's being generated, different number of curve points. You can do that through here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to say. So each string have different part of life. Like every human being have different part of life, and this string could be a story. In this case, just a sentence of poem. This poem, you can copy paste it. You know, it's kind of poetic, like I said. String of text, you just pass it into AI, and let's see if it's generating something. Yep, just give it sometimes. But anyway, this is the setup. So the string of curve coming in this case I set the spline types into nerves. If I didn't do this, it's gonna be, you know, like edgy, but I convert it into nerves. And then yeah, sample curve, etc. This one you just have to watch the this tutorial by Ilir Beqiri. Otherwise it looks very complicated, but basically it's sampling the curve and then just put the text of string to curve and just make it running through the curve. It's rotating and also tilting through the curve as well, because it's like a text on path. Okay, if we want to, in a different setup, you might want to instance objects on the curve as well. So using the Ilir Beqiri setup. So I have here, I have a line, for example. Okay, I randomize the seed of using vector noise. So the line goes into vector noise, and I just multiply by vector mask scalar. I think I did this in the past. But we have this mesh of objects that's being instanced. So using Ilir Beqiri setup, from this curve that's being generated from SVerchok, I use geometry nodes. So switch to geometry nodes. So this is the same setup, but instead of text, we just simply instancing an objects on points. So curve objects coming in. If I replace this with a circle, you can see it's just like that. Object looping through a circle. If I use this curve spline, the rest of the setup is just like what Ilir Beqiri setup. Grab the curve, sample the curve, get the tangent and the normal, align it this way, and then you just pass in the curve to points, instance on the points. This guy set position. I think the most important part is actually, I believe, this one over here. I use the index and this number. This number is actually important. This value goes into the number of curve to points there, and this number also goes into the max value. And I should probably turn on the turn off the clamp. So I should actually turn it off, but I need to set up the number correctly. Or maybe turn this off. I think this is more correct. Back to SVerchok, and I should turn this cyclic off. Anyway, same setup. So to summarize everything, let's say at some point we can ask AI at some point to create this setup automatically, which is okay in many cases. You want to automate things, right? You want, maybe in the future it's not just a simple basic text on a string. You want this to be something else. As for this one, I think it's a kind of complete. It's very simple and basic. It's just text running on the string, and because the string is plenty, it looks complicated. And because the text, each and every text is different, and it goes into this setup, you can accomplish this using Python code. Just create a bunch of curve, randomize each curve so it's more flowing like a snake. Because we want to have like string of snake, make sure every string of text is different. You ask the AI to generate this on the fly. Maybe this is kind of like a Twitter X post, like 240 letters maximum, like the old school Twitter. And then you just let it run, and it's created this kind of flowing text. And maybe you don't just have 40 lines of text, but you have like 8 billion of text at the same time, like really. Sometimes I use metaphor like 108 of lines. 108 is like infinity. Not exactly 108, but just infinite number of lines being created all at once at the same time, and it's just becoming this poetry of strings, kind of the idea. So it's very, like I said, it's very metaphorical, it's very poetic. But in the sense of what's being generated here using SVerchok and geometry nodes, this could be accomplished simply by prompting, or maybe that's the kind of my idea. Because I've been thinking, if I want to create a books based on this, I will be using a lot of knowledge from other Blender users as well, like this one from Beqiri. So the book's probably never gonna be created. Everything's gonna be online anyway. So with the whole knowledge come together, it's becoming like one AI knowledge that you can access. Then you can just type in your ideas, and it's gonna create something. If you actually want to find out the original source, maybe the AI will point out into these YouTube videos. Yeah. So anyhow, it's just string of text dancing on this curve, and it's created this visual. Sorry, excuse me. If I want to have like 200 of this, I can. So this created 200 of this text, right? But with one problem, we don't have it assigned to geometry nodes modifier yet. So now we have 200 texts running. Ideally, we won't get slowed down anyway with in the future, maybe the whole things will run inside game engine. So if you want, say, I want to have 200 or 1000 or even 10,000, it shouldn't slow up. It shouldn't slow down, but it's just a lot of things happening at the same time, right? So anyhow, if we have too many, it's gonna be like a noise. But this, I found it quite beautiful anyway. It's like a string of life being kind of running around. Okay, anyhow, I think that's pretty much what I want to say today. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.